Kyle Klingman with FloWrestling. We have Nick Mitchell, 17 seasons as the head men's wrestling coach at Grandview University, 13 championships in 14 seasons, including 9 in a row, 12 national duels titles, 205 and 12 dual meet record. And you're going to be stepping away. Nick, take us through that decision and what went into at age 48, stepping away from this head wrestling coaching role.
Yeah, 47, not 48
40,
yet.
okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
Right before Gable was 48, so you had to beat him on that.
yeah, that's right. I had to beat him at something for sure. Yeah, man, it's just I don't know. There's a lot that goes into it, and there's been times throughout my career where I've thought about, is it the right thing to keep coaching or to look at something else? And you get to a point where you're 47, and I think as you get older, people can attest to the fact that you start realizing like how fast time goes. 37 seemed like yesterday, and that was a decade ago. And when I think ahead, another decade, and I know how fast it goes, I love this job, and I've loved almost every second of it. But I'm pretty sure in 10 years that I'm sure that I don't still want to be the head wrestling coach at Grandview. And so when you start thinking like that, you got to start thinking about, okay, opportunities, and when an opportunity arises, then, you got to bounce on it, even if it's scary, and that's what this is, man. It's, you know, you, I'm doing something where I know I'm pretty good at it, and I know I've got a great situation, and I'm comfortable, and I work with some of the best people in the country and some really good friends. So making a change it's hard and it's scary, but that's not a reason not to make a change. And so I don't know if this is true, but somebody told me once that somebody asked Lincoln McIlravy why he didn't get into, stick with wrestling after he was done competing. And the story I heard was that he said, if you're an alcoholic, you don't work at a bar. And there's been a lot of times that I've felt that, felt like maybe I'm an alcoholic working at a bar. And the word I've used a lot to describe kind of how I felt within this job at times is it's consuming, and I don't want any of this to sound negative. It's again, like, it's been awesome, man. It's been so much fun. But when you're built the way I am, and you want to compete at the highest level, it does consume you at every part of you. And I don't mean it just consumes my time, but it consumes my soul a little bit, and you get to a point where you got to remember what your main priorities are. And so that's kind of where I'm at with it. And yeah, it's tough, man. I've talked to a good handful of people so far, and let a lot of people know, and every conversation I've been emotional, and it's been tough. um but that's just because you have so much gratitude. It's not because I'm second guessing it. It's just I'm so thankful for this program.
How much of that consumption is the pressure that is built when you guys dominate, and the expectation is not only just winning, but to dominate year in and year out? And so if you win by 20, someone might say Grandview's slipping a little bit. How much of that pressure do you feel?
I felt that a lot more early on, especially when we first started winning. I'd say the first few years winning is just fun. You're winning, it's great. And then you set an expectation. And I started feeling that a little bit. And honestly, that was the best thing that came out of the year that we got beat. It was a really good reset for me. And I've said this before, but at that point in my career, I was starting to kind of feel sorry for myself in not it's never good to feel sorry for yourself, but it was stupid. I mean, it was like, I coach small college wrestling, which means you're not making great money in the big picture. It's wrestling, and even within wrestling, when it's small college wrestling, you don't get a ton of notoriety. And sometimes, when you put so much into it, and then you start thinking like, oh man, I'm not getting paid a lot, or oh man, I'm not even, nobody really cares. It got that. I started like feeling that a little bit. And that's just being honest. And it was bad. It's not the right way to think. And so when we lost, it actually was a really good reset for me. Um, and again, when you look at this in the big picture, I said we lost, we got second. It wasn't like we had a bad season at all, but we didn't get what we were normally after. But either way, it was a very good reset for me. And the last 4 years have been really some of my favorite years because going into the season and my approach to it has been renewed, and just my perspective, has been so much better. And so it hasn't, that's not the consumption. It just, the to be a great coach, to build a great program, you can't be off. You always, I mean, I think at least you're always available. It's hard to turn it. You can't turn it off. You're always thinking about it. And again, that's good. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you get to a point where, my daughters are 14 and 11, and I don't want to miss stuff with them. We get kind of, and you get to that point where sometimes you start feeling that.
Does it ever cease to be fun when you're dominating like you do?
You know, that's the only fun time to me is, I mean, the fun, I shouldn't say the fun is like the the time with the guys on the team. The fun is the bus ride. The fun is like, dude, I work with like Paul Reedy and Grant Henderson, Grant Turner. I mean, these guys are like some of my best friends. Some of these guys that coach with me are guys that have been here for a long time. We built, that's the fun. That part is so much fun. Um, but and it's fun, of course, when you're at the national tournament and guys are winning and you're rolling a little bit. But for the most part, that's um that's work, it's stress, but the fun is last weekend. Eric Clark, one of our alums that was a grad assistant for us, got married, and I got to officiate the wedding, and we're all together, hanging out after and having a good time. That was a lot of fun, and so those are, to me, that's fun. Chasing the wins, that was exciting. That was like, that like maybe fired me up, and I'm still competitive. That doesn't change. Um, but it's I don't know if that I would call it fun though.
Jim Miller, your coach at Warburg, has said that he felt the elation from the time they won until the time they got the trophy. And then he said, "How are we going to do this again?" Can you relate to that? Is that how you felt?
Every year, yeah, every year. I mean, I've said it before. Every year that we were at the tournament winning the national title, well, and of course the years we didn't, but 13 of those championship seasons at the tournament, I'm thinking about what do we have coming back? What do we got to do better? It's just that's it's on to the next thing, and so and again, as I got older, I tried to do a better job of like, hey, soak this in, enjoy it, feel good about it. Um, but that again, if you're gonna continue to be successful, you better not spend much time patting yourself on the back, or else, that's it. So yeah, 100% can relate to that.
So 365, do you wear that pressure when you have championships and you have those aspirations to continue to win? Does that just wear on you day by day?
Yeah, I think so. And here's the thing, really, is like, again, like I've always taken pride in that. Like, hey, it wasn't, example when maybe when I was younger and our kids were younger, and my wife would give me a hard time, and I'd say, hey, we got Saturday morning practice, or it'd be in the spring and we're doing freestyle stuff. And she's like, well, you have to go today. And I'm like, come on, honey, we're not going to win national title thinking like that, and I'd give her a hard time. And then over the years, she'd say the same kind of thing to me. Like, I'd be like, oh, we got practice. And she's like, well, yeah, she's like, I'm trying to be married to a national champ, not some runner-up guy, um, and so it takes what it takes, and I've always been great with that. And I would say maybe what's started to change a little bit, towards the last few years here is maybe I started to get less fired up about it, and it took more discipline. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't, in the past, I was like, hell yeah, we're practicing Saturday morning, and heck yeah, we're going to do all this freestyle, and I'm going to go travel this place and recruit, and because it takes what it takes. But there's a little bit where maybe it crept in a little bit, like this is taking more discipline than it is self-motivation to do it. And I don't ever want to get to that point where um I'm that coach that people are like, maybe he should have stepped away a couple of years ago, or maybe that guy's, that dude, he graduated from high school in the 90s. Like he's still showing that old stuff, like you just, it's you don't want to fall into that trap.
How'd you build relationships with your athletes that will last long term?
I think really like trying to genuinely like care about their success and understanding like when you really care about their success, not in terms of your own success, then you begin to love those guys, and that's been such a big part of it is um like really trying to know them. I mean, it sounds maybe really obvious, but like when guys first come in, spend so much time really trying to see them and know them and understand them. And then, you get to know, of course, their families and their background and their struggles. And so much of my time has been sitting in my office meeting with guys and talking about hardships and adversity that they face and trying to um, implant some wisdom in them or at least point them to somebody that can. And, just over time, then you just build that and you really just care about like them reaching their potential and not just because I want them to win for me, but I just want it for them so bad. And that's, I think when guys feel that, then you naturally build a really good long lasting relationship.
Why did it feel like now was the right time rather than go through the full season?
Yeah, that was something that a little bit out of my control, but I think the other part is if I really wanted to fight for that was, is it the right thing? And my fear was number one, that okay, if we announce it early and then we go through the whole season, that I don't want to feel like I'm distracted. I don't want to feel like I have one foot out the door. A little bit of me didn't like. I know you could look at it as well. It's a good way to transition and let like the new leadership like take over and kind of help them along the way. But I don't know if yeah, I don't, I think I can do that pretty well when it's like my assistant coaches and but not in terms of like, I'm just going to step back and let you run with this. When, if I'm doing it, I'm going to want to do it. I'm going to want to do it 100%. I don't want to step back and take a mentorship role. I mean, I'm already doing that as the head coach with my assistant coaches, but I want to, I'm going to, there's going to be some things I'm like, no, man, it's my last year. I'm going to freaking go win. I'm going to go dominate. And so it'd be hard for me to step back. And the other big thing is I didn't want it to be a distraction throughout the year for the team. And I know like, initially this is going to be tough for them, to digest. But in a week, everything's not even a week, and we're going to get back to practice, and there's going to get back to training, and there's not going to be a lot of change that first month. That I'm going to kind of phase out. Um, but you fast forward 6 weeks from now, everyone's just going to go about their lives, and that's just how it is. I mean, it's it's not, I'm going to be doing something different, and I'm going to be connected to this program, and I'm going to be available and be around as much as I can. But everyone's going to move forward, and they're going to be just fine. But I think if you draw it out, it's like you're kicking something down the road just because it's a tough decision. And I could be like, I'll worry about this in March, and then we'll make the move. But I think that's just waiting to do something that's hard to do.
What are you going to do next?
I'm actually going to do business development. A good friend of mine that I actually coached. He was at Wartburg for a year, and then he coached with me at Grandview for I think 5 years as a part-time assistant coach. He's a vice president at a construction company, and I'm going to do business development for that company. So hopefully a lot of relationship building, getting to know people, networking, stuff that I do a lot of right now anyway. Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't know a lot about the job. I don't know a lot about construction, but I'm gonna dive into it and I'm gonna hustle and I'm gonna try to outwork the other BD guys.
How does championship lifestyle that you've developed, how does that carry over into your new profession?
It's funny because I get the opportunity to speak to businesses and certain companies from time to time, and I really maybe I wouldn't say it's easier to live that out as a coach, but it's easier to apply it to sports when you're talking about a normal guy job. Then it's an opportunity to kind of put my money where my mouth is, and I think that's the thing is I want to go wherever I'm at. I want to have an impact, and it's part of what the like maybe scary part of this is obviously like God gave me a gift to be able to help motivate people and hopefully like bring people around me up, and I want to do that wherever I'm at, and so I don't want to I said this before, I don't want to feel like I'm wasting a gift, and so I want to go and I want to have an impact, and I'm going to be the new guy, and I'm not there to be a leader right away, but I can lead in my work ethic and I can lead in how I approach the job every day, and hopefully that I can make people around me better in that field too.
What will the coaching structure look like for Grandview?
Um, Pretty cool, in terms of there's not going to be a lot of change here. Obviously, Paul Reedy he's been with me since year number 3. He's been our head assistant coach. He's the associate head coach. So he was the very first person I talked to about this. Grant Henderson was actually he was on his honeymoon / 1 year anniversary trip in Mexico, so he was gone for a few days, not really knowing what was going on here while he was gone. And Reedy and I had some time to talk about it. And Reedy decided that he's best in the role that he's in now. He of course, because of his longevity here and just the fact that he's been such a huge part of the program. He maybe if it was what he felt was the right fit, he probably could have had the best opportunity to take the head job. But it's not him. It's not what he wants to do. And I really think it's like noble of him to like think he's not putting any ego ahead of it, and he's not okay, now I'm going to be the top dog, or nothing. He doesn't think like that, and it's why he's so great at what he does. And so um looks like Grant Henderson is going to be the guy that takes on the head coaching position. And Grant he wrestled for us. He was 2-time national champ, 3-time finalist. He was gone for 1 year, running the Eastern Iowa Wrestling Club, and we got him back here, and he's been full time now for I think going on 6 years. So he's had a massive impact, and he's a leader. He runs our Viking Wrestling Club, and so he's used to being out front. He does a ton of our technique in our room, and he's super pumped about it. So he's 30. That's how old I was my first year at Grandview, and he's young, but he's fired up, and he's a lot more mature than I was at that stage of my career. So he's ready for it for sure.
What's your advice to him to be successful?
Um, do outwork everybody, just outwork everybody, and that's the thing. He already does that. He already is. He's got to be one of the hardest working coaches in the country. Between the Viking Wrestling Club and Grandview, and there's the time and work that he puts in. So I'm not concerned about that. But that's step one. And when you say outwork everybody, it goes back to that thing of, but you have to outwork everyone in every aspect. And so it's you have to be the best at building relationships. You have to, whether that's your current team, your alumni, your donors, your boosters, you got to be the best at building those relationships. You got to build great relationships with your assistant coaches. You got to build great relationships with our athletic director and our president. You got to be the best. You got to work harder than everyone at all those things. You got to stay up to date on the technical aspect. You got to be reading. You got to do everything. You got to learn how to motivate better. You have to become a better speaker. Um, every aspect you have to, yeah, if you want to be great, you got to outwork everybody in every aspect, and I trust that he will.
Go back to when you're at Wartburg. There's this great image of you in the Augsburg Wartburg duel, Iowa Public Television. You got your hat backward. Did you ever think that this would be your path, that you'd be retiring with 13 NAIA championships?
No, but I always, coaching was in my blood when I was young. I just, I loved it when even little kids wrestling, I loved helping my teammates, younger kids. And I've been so fortunate to have a lot of really good coaches. My kids club, I had really good youth coaches. High school, I had some good coaches. My head coach, Frank Balsley, he was very different than how I coach, but a great guy, but I got to learn a different perspective on what it means to be a good coach. And obviously then I go and wrestle for Coach Miller and, and see how he operated and, just had a huge impact on me. And so, yeah, you don't know what it's going to look like, but once I decided to dive into coaching, I made a decision, man. Nothing else was going to be acceptable other than being the best. And that's what we tried to do.
Any chance you'll Bic bald your head like he did?
I'm getting there. If you can't really see the angle, it looks pretty good from this angle. So I mean, why would I do that? But if you're since you're taller than me, you get a better angle. You know what it usually looks like. So we'll see. We'll see what the stress level of this new career change, and maybe next time you see me, it'll be like lush and thick, and you'll be like, "Dang, man, you're looking good."
Highlight memories for me. I always just love the national duels and what that brought. Like, highlight memories for you when you look back on this. What things resonate?
Man, I haven't taken a lot of time to like think through a lot of that stuff, but of course, Matt Burns winning our first national championship. I'll never forget when we won our first title was 2012, but we won the national duels that year. And when you're chasing something, you're not sure if you think it can happen, but you're not sure if it ever will. And I remember we won the semis. We beat Southern Oregon. They were so good that year. And we were pretty confident going into the final duel that we could really put it on those guys, and we did. And I remember just thinking like, dude, we're pretty good. Like this is going to happen, And then 2012, we won our first championship, and Coach Miller and Keller came down, and those guys. I remember talking to those guys right before the last session, and they were pumped for me. And I was actually looking back some old emails. I found an email that Coach Miller had sent me when I first started here, and we talked about how cool it'd be if we ever won one in the same year. And we did that. 2012 and 2013, we both won national championships. So that was pretty awesome. I mean, just back to the old predicament in Iowa there. I remember there was the front page was Wartburg and Grandview had both won national championships. And that was cool, man. So many, I mean, so many good memories over the years. I mean, just matches and good times and just, man, I've been so fortunate the people I've worked with.
How about when you guys almost beat Iowa State in a duel?
Yeah, I didn't seem that cool at the time, but it's something that kind of put us on the map, and I didn't really realize it at the time. We had already won two national titles. That was going into our third season, and probably maybe the one of the best, if not the best, dual team we ever. And we didn't even have like our best team wasn't in place yet at that time. But we had a really good dual team that year. And yeah, we beat Drexel and then have a really tight duel with Iowa State. And I couldn't believe how much positive they came out of that. And I think, it's these little things that happen along the way that you don't know are going to make an impact. Todd Bailey, our video guy, he was in the locker room with us after that duel. And, Coach Reedy, like he does, man, he gave me a little heads up before we went in there. And he's like, dude, just remind these guys, we weren't happy, but he was like, remind these guys that like we shouldn't be happy just because like we almost won. And we weren't, man. We were fired up and I wasn't happy about it. And I went in the duel in the locker room after that duel and I got after those guys and I was like, dude, that's not good enough. Like people are gonna literally pat us on the back and tell us what a great job we did just because we wrestled them close. And that wasn't the goal. And that video got a lot of traction. And I think it helped people understand like who we really were, and those are the things that helped us elevate over the years.
There's the saying, it's lonely at the top. Do you agree with that?
Um, I heard It was Tom or Terry Brand said, I heard one time, said it's not lonely at the top, it's lonely on the way to the top. And that's way truer. When we win national title, everybody wants to celebrate. They're all there, they're there with you. But the hours, the early mornings, the stress, the you know, you're dealing with 18 to 24-year-old young men who aren't always making the best decisions. The time away from family. That's when it's lonely. It's not, and again, like I say that, but I had some people, Reedy and these guys, like they were my partners in that whole process. But that's the tough part. It's not when you get to the top because everybody's there to on celebration night.
Nick, congratulations on an outstanding career. Any final parting thoughts that we missed? If there's anything you want to say, but what a career, and really wish you all the best in your next step.
I appreciate that. I mean, just, again, I'm so grateful for, Grandview and, Troy Plummer and President Henning who started this program and our current president, President Keck. And, I think one thing that actually is important is, I read the book Good to Great a long time ago, and part of what it talked about in there that I had never thought of was like, to be really a great leader, the business, the organization, the team should be able to thrive when you're gone, and that's what I always started to think is, okay, if I got hit by a bus or something happened and all of a sudden their plumber decides to can me and kick me out, whatever, I would hope that this place could thrive without me. And one thing Coach Miller taught me is like a big part of my job was to help coach my coaches. And I've no question that this place is going to thrive without me here. I mean, it does already. I mean, I can step back and just watch the machine work. And so I'm fired up for them, and I have so much confidence in these guys.